My name is Nathaniel Atta. Well, let's get into the Ghana Football Awards, shall we? Remember, it's the biggest gathering of footballers, administrators, and all those who are considered stakeholders in football here in Ghana. The second edition comes off on July 21 on Sunday at the Marriott Hotel. It sure does promise to be a great night of celebrating great achievements of football in the last year. Now, here with me in studio is Fifi Anaman. He's the project lead for the Ghana Football Awards, and he will be taking us into selected categories which we'll be discussing between now and Sunday. Now, Fifi, great to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, now, you know, based on the kind of success that we recorded in last year's event, I'm sure that you're getting a lot of positive feedback and a lot of positive vibe ahead of Sunday's event.
Definitely. The brand is now on the minds of people. I mean, when we set out, the idea was to create an annual tradition that people would talk about, you know, every single year. Like people talk about the VGMAs, for instance. And we know Ghanaians love music, but not as much as they love football. So we thought, why not start something around our passion and see if we can celebrate it each year?
Great. Now, last year, Thomas Partey deservedly won the Footballer of the Year award. And I remember that scene very well where Thomas Partey was honored by Africa's greatest boxing legend, Azuba Nelson. Now, this year, it's another three-prong race.
Yes. Thomas Partey is there once again. This time he's up against Felix Annan and as well as Abdullah Mukarama of the national under-17 women's team.
Of course, Mukarama made big headlines
at the World Cup. Of course, her strong point was her performance at the World Cup in Uruguay. I think she was top scorer as well as the third best player. So she won the bronze ball there as well. Then you have Felix Annan, who was phenomenal for Asante Kotoko, found his way in the AFCON squad. Unfortunately, didn't get a run out in Egypt, but a lot of people, I mean, running through some of the votes that have come in, a lot of people seem to think Felix Annan did enough to deserve it. But Thomas Partey's case is interesting. For Atletico Madrid, obviously started the season with a UEFA Super Cup win, but throughout the season wasn't as prominent, but of course very consistent throughout the campaign. Now at the
he
AFCON,
also did not necessarily get a good AFCON, but scored a crucial goal.
Scored a crucial goal against Guinea-Bissau. But luckily for him, the judging by the board to come out with a short list happened before the AFCON, and so they didn't consider performances at the AFCON. So Thomas Partey does have a chance of doing a back-to-back.
We'll be getting into three categories right now, but just before that, there's been a lot of talk about how someone like, you know, Mubarak Wakaso also put up a last-minute or 11th-hour performance at the Africa Cup of Nations, because of which he probably should have made it into the
the top. Yes, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. A lot of questions directed at the people behind the scenes. Now, Mubarak Wakaso's case, interesting. At the board level, you know, the board level is where the short lists are done. Some of the board people actually voted for him for most of the categories, but he just fell short of the top three. And so there are a lot of people you don't see in the final list, but you know, did really well. Someone like John Entry, for instance, missed by Whisker. People like Charles Diawisi Taylor for home base player of the year. You know, so there are a lot of players in there. Obviously, at that point, you need to have impressed certain people to be able to make the final list. So unfortunately, Mubarak Wakaso only made the team of the year, but not the final short list.
Well, before we get into the categories again, what's the format of voting for your favorite player for specific awards? Quickly.
Right. So the format is, you know, it has some folds to it. There's a Club 100, which is made up of journalists, captains, coaches, you know, of the various Premier League clubs, as well as the national team, both male and female, who make up, who wield 80% of the deciding power. And then we have the general public deciding the rest of the 20. And so that's how it is set up. So for the main competitive categories, the general public have a 20% power, and then those people who are the main actors, the captains, coach, and journalists who actually watch the football have 80% of the power.
We're about to discuss the home base player of the year. Now, how do I vote for the home base player of the year?
So there are online links. You can see this, the first nominee. This is Mohamed Al Hassan. He plays his football at Accra House of Folk. One of the most talked about centre halves in the country, made the provisional AFCON squad. The first House of Folk player to make a provisional AFCON squad, I think for the first time since 2006, I believe it was. Former captain of Wafa, brilliant player. He's in there as well. Then we have some other nominees like Felix Annan.
Definitely.
Yes, goalkeeper extraordinaire, Asante Kotoko, did himself, he did himself and his club really well proud in that particular encounter in Africa. Home base player of the year nominee number 3, Abdul Fattah Safiu. He was top scorer alongside Charles Jarvis Taylor in the NC special competition. He also made the Black Stars provisional squad. He just came in December and absolutely, took the local scene by storm. So these are the 3: Abdul Fattah Safiu of Kotoko, another Kotoko player in Felix Annan. A lot of arguments here and there.
Not exactly surprising that Kotoko has the majority of the nominations, because they performed very creditably, and of course, rightly so. They also won the NC special competition.
Yes, they did.
All right, so let's now talk about the foreign-based player of the year. Yes. Another very big place of interest, isn't it?
Yes, we have Joseph Edu. Okay, I wouldn't say this is. Well, how do I describe it? Controversial, I think, is the right word, because at board level there was a lot of back and forth. I think it was between Joseph Edu and, believe me, John Boy.
I see.
Put in a few shifts. Now, he was part of that FC Met side that gained promotion into League A. So a lot of the board members were sort of going in his favor. Joseph Edu stood tall because of the fact that he won the Belgian League with KRC, again, consistent throughout the season.
Sure.
Kojo Asamoah makes a return, of course. For the first time since 2013, this has been his most consistent season in terms of appearances, and so the board thought he was also up there as well. And of course, usual suspect, Thomas Partey. It looks like it's a season, isn't it? For the last 3 to 4 years, he has been dominating discussions in terms of Ghanaian football. So unsurprising inclusion there.
Okay. Now another very key part of this celebration of excellence in football, which happens on Sunday at the Marriott Hotel, is the Women's Footballer of the Year. Now, I know that, you surely are guessing there's one name that surely is going to be in there. Okay, let's now roll. And Mukarama
Abdullahi Mukarama, yes. I think she has been an overwhelming favorite. Last year she was at the awards. She was up for Women's Footballer of the Year. I think she was up against Janet Eju and Princella Dubia. She lost out to Princella Dubia, who was injured, couldn't make the awards. But Abdullahi was there, and I could see she was really disappointed. And then, she walked up and said, why this? And I thought, your time will come. And she went to the World Cup and absolutely took the world by storm. So this is looking like it was going to be a good year for her.
Even though we don't have the final
exactly. Grace Asantua is in there. She was really good for the Black Princesses in the World Cup in France. Of course, they didn't perform too well, but she was one of the bright spots. She was also MVP at the recent NC special competition for women football. Janet Eju, consistent. She was MVP at the last WAFU tournament in the Ivory Coast. This year too was one of the top performers as well.
Fifi, thank you so much. It's been lovely having you. We surely are going to be doing this some more.
Definitely more discussions.
Of course, so we've been talking about the Ghana Football Awards, which happens there at the Marriott Hotel on Sunday. And of course, the movers and shakers in all sectors will be there to celebrate, who will become the eventual footballer of the year. But sad news coming in a few hours earlier on our page on myjoyonline.com indicates that Pernell Whitaker, who won world titles in 4 different weight classes, has passed on, and this is after he was knocked down by a car in Norfolk, Virginia. And very, very sad story coming in there. We all remember his fight against the legendary Azuma Nelson, where Azuma Nelson lost out to him. We'll be doing some more on this rather unfortunate story later on JoyNews Prime and in our other bulletins. That's your sport. My name is Nathaniel Atto, and I have love for sport.